So what we have here are two very different scorpion species. Sadly, I couldn't get hold of any live specimens. We'd have to make do with these two dead specimens. And I thought it'd be interesting to talk about how these two different species behave and how they're adapted to their ecological niche in the wild. So here we have a specimen of an emperor scorpion, which is the largest scorpion in the world, and they're native to Africa. And here's my hand for comparison. So they're big scorpions, about 15 centimeters long on average. And this is one of the smallest, which is a Manchurian scorpion from China and Asia, that sort of part of the world, which is very similar in appearance in many ways to the fat-tailed scorpion of Africa and the deathstalker scorpion, which is infamous for being one of the most dangerous arachnids in the world. Now, scorpions are arachnids. As you can see, they have 8 legs, not 6 like insects. So scorpions are arachnids. They're part of the same family as spiders, ticks and mites. Another thing you'll notice, much like spiders, they're one of their close relatives, is they're covered in these hairs in between their armour, which serve as a sensory device, so they can basically feel around for their prey, because their vision, especially with this guy, you can see his eyes are so small they're almost not visible, so his vision is not exactly very good. So scorpions rely a lot on touch as their main sense, and they basically detect the presence of their prey, which is usually insects and other small animals, through detecting vibrations and changes in air currents with these very sensitive body hairs. And they also have, I'm not sure if this individual you can see, they have these little tiny appendages on their underside, and they're referred to as pectines, which are very effective at detecting vibrations through the ground, which is another effective means of detecting either the presence of an animal approaching that they might want to eat, or something that might actually be dangerous to them and they need to find a way to defend themselves or get away from that danger. Probably the most striking thing about looking at these two scorpions is not only the size difference, but also how this scorpion, the emperor scorpion, has these huge pincers or claws or pedipalps, if you want to be specific with the terminology, but for its size, a relatively tiny sting. Now, the bulb underneath the sting, just in this area, is known as a telson, and on the emperor scorpion you can see it's really quite small, and the tail itself is actually not that large compared with the rest of the body, and yet the claws or pincers at the front are very large and very strong. In contrast, this little scorpion, the Manchurian scorpion, it's much smaller, but its pincers are very, very narrow and thin up front, very kind of delicate in contrast, but its tail is much fatter and much larger in comparison to the rest of its body, and the telson and the stinger are very enlarged as well, much larger in comparison to its body than that of the emperor scorpion. And of course, looking at these two different scorpions, it does tell an interesting story then of how these two scorpions hunt and how they both defend themselves and also how they kill their prey. So the emperor scorpion has these really large pincers up front, which indicates that when it's tackling prey, usually other invertebrates, it uses its really large pincers to basically crush its prey and dispatch it very quickly, with little to no real need to use this stinger, because the venom in it, although still fairly potent, is not very effective, and it doesn't really need it because its stinger is not exactly that large and its claws will do the job anyway. So this scorpion, it relies mostly on its sheer size and strength and the size of its pedipalps to basically dispose of its prey, whereas this scorpion, being much smaller and having much more delicate pedipalps or pincers, relies more on venom to subdue its prey, and also as a means of self-defense. And it's quite interesting that, ironically as well, the larger scorpions tend to be somewhat less dangerous to us humans, as they're more likely to either pinch with their pincers in defense, and even if they do sting you, the venom is very unlikely to be dangerous, whereas in comparison, for their size, these scorpions are much more dangerous because they've got a much more powerful venom in their sting for their size, because they rely on that venom as a means of both defense and to subdue prey, which could be up to the same size as themselves on occasion. And you'll note, and there's species like the African fat-tailed scorpion, which have a tail proportionally even larger than this, so their venom is especially potent, which makes them a very dangerous invertebrate indeed, and they can definitely punch well above their weight. Now, just like spiders, scorpions are predators, but unlike spiders, they lack fangs or large jaws at the front of their mouths in which to process their food. Instead, if you look closely, they have these really tiny pincer-like mouth parts which help break up food, but the majority of breaking up the food is done by the pincers when the prey is actually within the scorpion's grasp. Now, the mouth parts of arachnids like this are referred to as chelicerae, and arachnids basically live on a liquid diet because their mouth parts are not actually the best designed for chewing and processing their food like us, so they rely instead on these little mouth parts as well as their pincers to process their food. And also to a degree, the venom in their stinger acts as like a digestive enzyme. In fact, many venomous animals, venom is used to break down the tissues of prey, and it does actually make consumption and digestion of prey a lot easier for many types of animals, so spiders, scorpions, and also to a degree venomous snakes. So the biggest scorpions alive today are roughly around 10 to 15 centimeters long on average, but there were scorpions that used to live in the Carboniferous period, so before the dinosaurs, which could get up to a meter in length. But then there were a family of arthropods known as the sea scorpions or Eurypterids, which could get up to 3 meters or more in length. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this slightly different video put out today. This channel covers a range of different animals, not just falconry and birds of prey, but there'll definitely be more videos to do with them coming very soon. Until then, see you in the next one.